I never thought losing my car would make me realize how trapped I really was. At 33, I was married, working full-time and raising a 6-year-old son. From the outside, my life looked stable. But behind closed doors, my mother-in-law, Linda, had somehow become the person controlling everything. It started with little things. She criticized how I cooked. She questioned how I raised my son. She even commented on what I wore. Whenever I complained to my husband, Ethan, he would sigh and say, "That's just mom. Ignore her." Watching from which country? Comment below. Like, share, and subscribe for more. But ignoring her only made things worse. 3 months before everything exploded, Linda convinced Ethan that we should temporarily transfer my car into her name because of some insurance, as she claimed would save us money. I didn't like the idea, but Ethan assured me it was harmless. "Trust me," he said. "Mom knows what she's doing." I wish I'd listened to my instincts. One Friday afternoon, after a long day at work, I walked outside and found my parking space empty. My heart immediately dropped. I pulled out my phone and called Ethan. "Where's my car?" I asked. There was a strange silence on the other end. Then he said, "Mom has it." "What do you mean she has it?" "She picked it up this morning." "Why?" Another pause. Finally, he answered, "She thinks you've been getting a little too independent lately." I actually laughed because I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. A few minutes later, Linda called me herself. Her voice sounded smug. "I took the car because someone needs to remind you that this family works better when everyone knows their place." I stood frozen on the sidewalk. Then she said the words that changed everything. "You've gotten too comfortable doing whatever you want. Consider this a lesson." And in that moment, I realized this was never about a car. It was about control. What I didn't know was that the worst humiliation of my life was only 48 hours away. The entire weekend felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Without my car, I had to depend on Ethan for everything. Getting to work, picking up groceries, even taking my son to soccer practice suddenly became impossible unless someone else allowed it. And that was exactly what Linda wanted. Every time I asked about getting my car back, she had a new excuse. "I'd safer with me." You need to learn patience. You've been making too many decisions without consulting the family. The way she said the family made my stomach turn. What she really meant was herself. By Sunday afternoon, I had reached my limit. I drove with Ethan to Linda's house and demanded my keys back. The moment we walked inside, I knew something was wrong. Linda was sitting in her favorite armchair with a smug smile on her face. Her sister, 2 neighbors, and a couple of family friends were there too. It felt like an audience had been invited. "Perfect timing," Linda said cheerfully. "For what?" I asked. She looked around the room and laughed. "For the intervention." My face went hot. "The what?" She stood up and folded her arms. "You've become selfish, disrespectful, and difficult. Everyone here agrees that your attitude is damaging this family." I looked at the people around the room. Some avoided eye contact. Others looked uncomfortable. But nobody said a word. Then Linda reached into her purse and pulled out my car keys. For a second, I felt relieved, until she dangled them in front of me and pulled them back. "You can have these when you earn back our trust." The room went silent. I turned toward Ethan, expecting him to finally defend me. Instead, he lowered his eyes. That hurt more than anything Linda had done. At that moment, I realized I wasn't standing in a family gathering. I was standing in a public humiliation designed to break me. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my purse and walked out the door. Tears blurred my vision as I stepped onto the sidewalk. Then I heard a truck pull up beside me. I looked up and froze. My father was sitting behind the wheel. His expression was colder than I had ever seen. He unlocked the passenger door and looked straight at me. "Get in," he said. Then he glanced toward Linda's house. "This ends tonight." And for the first time all weekend, I felt something stronger than fear. Hope. I climbed into my dad's truck without asking a single question. The second I shut the door, he looked at me and saw the tears I had been trying so hard to hide. "Tell me everything," he said. So I did. I told him about the car, the insults, the constant criticism, the way Linda treated me like a child instead of a grown woman. I told him about the so-called intervention and how Ethan had stood there while his mother humiliated me in front of strangers. The tighter Dad gripped the steering wheel, the angrier he became. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then he said something that stopped me cold. "Sweetheart, this was never about the car." I looked at him. "I know." "No," he replied. "You don't. This woman isn't trying to control your transportation. She's trying to control your life." Deep down, I knew he was right. Dad pulled into a parking lot and shut off the engine. Then he handed me a folder. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside were copies of documents, photos, and printed messages. I stared at them in confusion. "How did you get these?" His jaw tightened. "Because I started paying attention months ago." As I flipped through the papers, my heart started racing. There were text messages Linda had sent to relatives behind my back. Messages calling me manipulative. Messages claiming I was an unfit mother. Messages encouraging family members to pressure Ethan into putting me in my place. I felt sick, but it got worse. Much worse. Near the bottom of the folder was a copy of a loan document. My eyes widened. The car transfer hadn't been about insurance at all. Linda had used ownership of my vehicle as collateral for a personal debt. I read the page twice because I couldn't believe it. "She lied," I whispered. Dad nodded. "She lied to all of you." My hands started shaking. Everything suddenly made sense. The delays, the excuses, the refusal to return the car. She couldn't give it back because she had used it for her own benefit, and Ethan had either been too blind or too weak to see it. Dad looked at me with determination. "Tonight we're going to Linda's house." I swallowed hard. "For what?" He opened the truck door. "To expose every lie she's told." What I didn't know was that before the night was over, Linda's perfect image would completely fall apart. Ethan would be forced to make the biggest decision of his life. That night, my dad and I drove straight back to Linda's house. The lights were still on, and several of the same people from the intervention were inside. Apparently, Linda was still enjoying the attention. The moment we walked through the door, every conversation stopped. Linda crossed her arms. "Well, look who came back." Before I could say a word, my father stepped forward. "No, Linda," he said calmly. "Tonight, we're done listening to you." The confidence instantly faded from her face. Dad placed the folder on the dining room table and opened it. "What is this?" Linda asked. "The truth." One by one, he pulled out the documents. The text messages, the loan papers, the evidence showing she had used my car as collateral without telling me the real reason she wanted ownership. The room became completely silent. Several people started reading the papers themselves. I watched the color drain from Linda's face. "That's not what happened," she stammered. "Then explain the signatures," Dad replied. She couldn't. For the first time since I had known her, Linda had no control over the room. Then one of the family friends spoke up. "Linda, you told us she was irresponsible." Another person added, "You said you were helping her." A neighbor shook her head. "You lied to all of us." The whispers started spreading across the room. The support Linda had counted on was disappearing right in front of her. Then everyone turned toward Ethan. My heart pounded. This was the moment that mattered. He looked at his mother, then he looked at me. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Finally, Ethan took a deep breath. "Mom," he said quietly, "you've been manipulating me for years." Linda's eyes widened. "You don't mean that." "Yes, I do." He stepped beside me. "You humiliated my wife. You lied to me, and you used her property for your own benefit." Linda tried to interrupt, but Ethan held up his hand. "No, I'm done making excuses for you." Those words hit her harder than anything else that night. A week later, legal pressure forced Linda to return everything connected to the car. Her reputation in the family never fully recovered, and people stopped trusting her stories. As for Ethan, He started therapy and spent months rebuilding the trust he had broken. And me? For the first time in years, I felt free. The woman who tried to control my life lost the one thing she valued most: her power. The night my father told me, "Get in, this ends tonight," he wasn't just helping me get my car back. He helped me get my life back. And that was the victory Linda could never take away.